Destroy them! Destroy them at once!
Right, so as the intro suggested, in today's video, we're going to be ranking the Cybermen. Now, as always, there are going to be a couple of honourable mentions because, obviously, I can't rank every single Cyberman, although I've tried to rank basically all the important ones that exist. But a couple of honourable mentions go to the Cyber King and the Flood Cybermen from that one comic. I haven't read it, so I can't really make judgments on them, although they look quite cool. Also, that one weird one from the Dark Dimension that never got released. I think that's all of the ones I haven't covered. If there are any more, please let me know. But by my count, there are 25 Cybermen to go through. Like with the previous two lists, I've used a preference revealer to indicate my preferences on Cybermen. I found some interesting results, to be fair, so with that said, let's get on with the list. Coming in at 25th place, we have the CyberMasters from the Series 12 episode, The Timeless Children. Now, with these, I'm just going to come out and say it, they look stupid. They just look silly. With the Gallifreyan headdress and the robes, why would a Cyberman need robes? They don't feel anything, that's the whole point. They're just dumb. They're little droopy, sad faces. They look dumb. The only thing I like is the sort of Gallifreyan inscriptions on the sort of bodies. That's the only thing I like. Other than that, I think their headdresses are a bit overkill, and I also think the robes are a bit overkill. They just feel very fanficky, and they don't really serve any meaningful purpose within the story. So yeah, that's why they're here. I just thought they looked really dumb, and were a really dumb concept to begin with. I know they've been in things like comics, but as I said, comics and TV, two different mediums. Some things work within comics that don't work in films. Coming in at 24th place then, we do have the 2013 Wooden Cyberman design from Time of the Doctor. Now this is only a one-off appearance because it was done so that basically the Cybermen could get through the tech field thing that they had on Trenzalore. And it just kind of takes a design that I'm already not a big fan of and makes it wooden. And yeah, just not a fan of this one. It doesn't really look like wood, it looks like plastic. So yeah, this one's never really appealed to me. I do like the sort of orange chest repulsor thing it's got going on, and I think a flamethrower is a nice touch, but besides that, there's nothing that I'm really a fan of on this Cyberman. I also don't like how the gun is like a sort of wooden gun. It's very strange. Not a fan of it. At 23rd place then, we do have the Cybershades. Now admittedly, I do have a sort of soft spot for this one, because they were kind of the first sort of Cybermen that I saw, because First Doctor, the next Doctor was my first Doctor Who story. So these do hold a special place in my heart. However, I can't deny, much like the CyberMasters, they are pretty stupid. They're just basically what would happen if a dog went through the conversion process, or a cat. And yeah, it's just a bunch of men crawling around with like feathers and a mask, and it just looks a bit silly. So yeah, they don't really serve any purpose either. You could basically just remove them from the story and not a lot would change about the next Doctor. So yeah, that's why they're here. At 22nd place, we have the Silver Nemesis Cybermen. Now with these, it's kind of just because, well, the Earthshock Cybermen, I like them, but I do admit they are kind of difficult to sort of take seriously by modern standards, for modern audiences anyway. But with these, it's kind of like that design, but painted bright silver, and I just think it's a little bit too 80s for my liking, you know what I mean? It's a bit too sort of garish and bright, but that's just my opinion. Coming in at 22nd, we have the Silver Nemesis Cyber Leader. The only difference between this one and the obviously Silver Nemesis ones is that they've got the black handlebars, which is kind of the case for most of the Cyber Leaders, and you'll see those as we go further down in the list. Yeah, same rule applies with the Silver Nemesis ones really. I'm just not a fan of the sort of bright design. Coming in at 20th, we have the 2013 Cyberman design, often referred to by fans as the Iron Man designs. And you can't really blame them, and you can see why. They're just sort of way too thin for my liking. There's no way, like, an actual sort of... I can't imagine regular people fitting inside that, which is what I like to think is inside a Cyberman. It's like, with sort of Cybus designs and Earthshock designs, you can imagine a person being inside that. With these, they just feel like robots. The arc reactor is very Iron Man, as I said earlier. The sort of armor is very Iron Man, very sleek. The sort of powers that they have with the running, I'm just not a fan of these at all. Admittedly, I used to really like this design, but I feel like that was just because I thought, oh wow, new Cyberman design, this is the best. When I look back on it, I'm like, not a fan. The voices are a bit sort of gravelly for my taste as well. So yeah, these are just not my cup of tea at all. And unfortunately, they were the sort of Cyberman of choice for the Stephen Moffat era, for most of it at least. Coming in at 19th, we have the Telos Cyber Controller from Attack of the Cybermen. And with this, it's kind of difficult to really distinguish again from the Earthshock designs. The only real difference is that it's got a weird dome head thing, and I don't know why, it looks really funny to me. He's also a bit fatter and chunkier than the other Cybermen, and yeah, not to body shame the Cyberman, but yeah, it just kind of looks a bit, I don't know, the sort of weird head kind of makes it look like Squidward to me. I don't know why, but ever since I saw that now, I can't really unsee it. So yeah, that's why the Telos Cyber Controller is in 19th place. In 18th place, we have the 1975 Cyber Leader design. Now, the only reason this is further down than the regular design is that I prefer just having black handlebars as opposed to having black earmuff things as well. I also, and I'll come on to this with the regular design, I'm not a huge fan of the sort of tubing on these Cybermen's handles. They kind of look like vacuum sort of tubing, and I'm just not a fan of it. And then, as I said, coming in at 17th place, we do have the 1975 Cyberman design, or the Valos Cybermen, I think. Yeah, again, it's the same rule applies. I'm just not a fan of the tubing. Other than that, there's nothing really inherently wrong with them. It's just the tubing is enough to sort of lower them in my estimations. Bear in mind, these are very little nitpicky things, and they're very close together for the most part, these Cybermen designs. Coming in at 16th place, we have the Wheel in Space Cybermen design from Wheel in Space. These Cybermen are just, in my opinion, a massive step down from the Tomb of the Cybermen and the Moonbase Cybermen that we saw prior. They're just not as threatening. I don't really like the sort of drop on the lip. I think that's a bit step too far. I think the bodies in general look a lot more fake. And yeah, I just don't think that this design is nearly as appealing to look at as its sort of predecessors. Coming in at 15th place, we have the 1985 Stealth Cyberman design. Now, the only difference, again, between these and regular Earthshock ones is that Stealth Cyberman is all dressed in black. And admittedly, I do kind of like this. I would never want it to be a sort of main Cyberman design, but I do kind of like having a sort of black Cyberman. It's kind of very Stormtrooper-y, very sort of, yeah, very Star Wars in that way. I kind of like it. It only really makes a very brief appearance anyway, so that's why it's sort of occupying a sort of middle spot. Coming in at 14th place, we have the Invasion Cyberman design. Now with these, don't get me wrong, they are a classic design, no doubt, but again, for me, they just don't hold a candle to what the Cybermen looked like earlier on in Troughton's run. They're sort of the middle point between the 60s designs of the Cybermen and the more sort of Earthshocky designs of the 80s. You've got the sort of earmuffs, which would go on to be a staple. You've got the sort of larger face, which again was a staple of the Earthshock designs. But I don't know, the sort of torso and the trousers, they kind of look like jackets. Like, they don't look like metal, if you know what I mean. They look like clothes, and it just doesn't look that great to me personally. I mean, again, this is just complete personal preference, but like, if you feel differently, that's perfectly fine. I understand that these do have their fans for sure. But yeah, I just don't think they hold a candle to what comes before or after it, really. Coming in at 30th place, we have the lone Cyberman, Ashad, from Haunting of Villa Diodati, Ascension of the Cybermen, and Timeless Children. On paper, the idea of a sort of half-converted Cyberman with like human features is a really cool idea. You know, there's sort of different elements of Cybermen. It's very sort of Nightmare in Silver is sort of inspired with the arc reactor and all that different stuff, but it does have the Mondassian arm and the sort of broken helmet thing, which I really like. It's a great design. I just wish that the performance wasn't quite so hammy, and I would change the voice slightly, because to me it sounds a bit too sort of fake. I don't know, the voice has never just sat right with me. But generally, I do like this design, and it was utilised fairly well, so yeah, 1 point for Series 12, I guess. Coming in at 12th place, we have the 12th Cyber Legion Cyber Leader. That was a mouthful to say. The only difference between this Cyber Leader and the 2008 Cyber Leader is that it's not got the Cybus logo. Now, unlike my pal Ace Creeper, I actually think that without the Cybus logo, these Cybermen do have a sort of something missing from them. It always draws my eyes to them in that way. It feels like there should be something there that's not, for me personally. But yeah, I understand why people prefer them not to have the Cybus logo, because they don't like the branding. I get it. But for me, it feels like there should be something there that's not. That's just my opinion, and again, if your opinion differs, that's totally fine. In 11th place, 2008 Cyber Legion, not Cyber Legion, Cyber Leader. So basically the ones from the next Doctor. The thing about this one that I don't like is obviously, similarly to the 12th Cyber Legion, Cyber Leader, God, I'm really struggling to say all these names. The face is like all black, and it covers the eyes, which I don't really like. I think the silhouette of a Cyberman, the eyes should be like visible, not like the actual human eyes, but the sort of holes should be visible, and they're not really on this design, which is why it's lower down on the list as there's some of the later ones. In 9th place, we have the Earthshock Cybermen. Now, we talked about the Earthshock Cybermen a lot already, mainly because they appear in many different forms outside of just the regular design. But this design is, again, it's very 80s, and I personally like it. I do understand why people find it incredibly goofy. I think the only issue I have, kind of like how I illustrated in the opening of the video, the voices are a bit too emotional, and I think having the mouths be visible, because I can kind of see the mouths, as in like the human mouths, it makes it feel more like a costume. The sort of torso and leg area kind of looks like a biker suit. I don't know whether anyone else kind of thinks that, but that's kind of what I think. Generally though, I do really like this design. It's very quintessentially classic Doctor Who, and I really enjoy it. In 8th place, kind of similarly, we got the Earthshock Cyber Leader, which again, the only real difference there is obviously the black handlebars. I think it does just add that little bit of pop to this design, in my opinion. Obviously, it shows the different ranks, as you know already. In 7th place, we have the Cyber Warriors from Ascension of the Cybermen and Timeless Children. Now, these, at first I was like, wow, they're great, and then there were like little things that sort of put me off. I personally would prefer it if the spikes were only on the shoulder pads. I understand they're a warrior variant, which is why I would say keep an element of the spikes, but don't keep them all over the body. I think they just look a bit too medieval. I understand the intentions, but I think that they shouldn't look too much like something else. You know what I mean? Cybermen should look like their own thing. Generally though, I think this design is pretty good. It maintains the sort of arc reactor, but it adds on a sort of light at the top of the headpiece, kind of similar to the Mondassian Cyberman, which I liked. The head sculpt and the body in general is a lot fatter than the Nightmare in Silver variants, which I kind of like, because it makes it look more like a sort of war machine kind of, rather than what the Nightmare and Silver ones were, where they just kind of like robots that could fly and all that stuff. These kind of feel like proper bulky machines, and it really feels like people have been like shoved into these massive machines, even though we don't really see the human parts come out of these Cybermen. It's indicated that it's in there anyway. In 6th place, we have the 12th Cyber Legion Cybermen. Now these ones are very similar to the Cyber Leader from the Cyber Legion. There's basically just the Cybus ones without the Cybus logo, and as I said before, I just think there's something missing without the Cybus logo, but that's just my opinion. Outside of that, these Cybermen are great, you know, there's nothing really wrong with them. Again, it's very personal preference, this list. Coming in at 5th place, we have the Cybus Cybermen, as seen in things like Rise of Cybermen, Age of Steel, all that good stuff. These Cybermen are just, they were my childhood Cybermen, so I guess I have got like that attachment to them on that level, kind of like what I had with John Sims Master. However, yeah, they are really good. If I have one complaint, they are a bit too sort of loud and clunky. They're a bit too stompy for my liking, and maybe a little bit too robotic, but I think they get around that with the writing, particularly in Age of Steel, where like the Doctor finds one of them and it's saying about how it's going to miss its wedding. That is really genuinely like heartbreaking and a really good way of showing Cybermen are people without actually going to body horror, because obviously there is only so much body horror you can do with BBC, you know, a tea time slot in a family show. You know, there's only so much of it you could do. Coming in at 4th place, we have the Cybus Cyber Controller. Now, this one I really like, and the reason I like it is because as someone who uses a chair quite frequently, I appreciate a strong look in a chair. But in all seriousness, I really like this. Not only does it show the sort of power of the Cyber Controller as kind of he sat on a throne, but it also is kind of emblematic of the fact that John Lumic himself needed a lot to stay alive with all the tubing coming into his body. I really like it. I really like the eyes that light up. I think that adds an extra level of depth to this design. I think the voice being deeper, really like that. Yeah, in general, this design is just a really nice one, and I think that I would like to have seen it again. Unfortunately, we didn't. In 3rd place, we have the 1967 Cyber Controller design. Now, you guys all know how much I love the Telos Cybermen, the 1967 Cybermen, and it's obvious that their leader was going to be some point in this list. I really like this design. The only thing that really stops him from getting higher is just the fact that he's not the main design, honestly. I think the head is done much better here than it is in most places. Like, the brain is actually probably best implemented here. And I think that, yeah, generally it's a really good design. He doesn't seem to have much detail on the body from what I can see, which would also sort of be a detracting factor when the main Moonbase and Tomb designs have a lot of detail on their chests. But outside of that, yeah, really like this design. In 2nd place, it is the Mondassian Cybermen. Now, for many people, again, I understand that these are number ones, and obviously I'm including both the Mondassian Cybermen from 10th Planet and their sort of revamp that they got in World Enough in Time and Doctor Falls. With these, yeah, they're just really well done and really do have that body horror element while still managing to fit within, like, you know, acceptable for a BBC budget. It kind of shows, like, you know, the hands and stuff, or in the revamped case of the gloves, it's got the sort of cloth face, which makes it look very sort of claustrophobic and tight in there, which is what I'd like to see. I like to see it that this human body's just sort of being rammed in there. Yeah, it just looks really good. If there's one complaint I have, I do find the voices a little bit non-threatening, but in both cases. I understand that obviously it was different times and we can do different things with like different sort of technology now with different voices. But yeah, that's the one complaint I have. Outside of that though, the lamps are really cool. These sort of chests are really cool with the massive bits of machinery. It makes sense. I like that these Cybermen have full-on proper boots. I like that. It makes the sort of the walking, like, they don't plod around, but you can feel the sort of impact when they walk, if you know what I mean. It's very sort of nitpicky, that is, but I think you understand what I'm trying to say. Yeah, in general though, these are really good. I really like the sort of circle around the eyes, which is something I think we've sort of lost a little bit. The sort of, because we've had, in New Who, we've kind of just had circles with tears, which is fine, but I kind of like the sort of extra circle around the main circle of the eye. I think that just adds an extra layer of depth, which is also in my number one pick and the 1967 Cyber Controller design. Number one then, this won't be a surprise to any of you if you know me, say it with me, it's the Moonbase and Tomb of the Cybermen. These are just, they're so good. I love the sort of, the faces, the eyes, the mouth. The mouth moves very nice. I like the sort of shutter movement that it's got on both the Cyber Controller and the regular design. The voices are fantastic, as I said. I like the hands being sort of contorted sort of hands. They're not like proper hands, but I like to think that they couldn't fit all the fingers into the suit, so they had to cut off some of the regular fingers, which is why they've only got like 3. I really kind of like that. I like all of this design. The sort of bodies have just enough machinery to feel like they're sort of humans being capped on life support, but not so much to the point where it feels clunky at any point. Yeah, they're just really well done. They're really they're lightweight, but they're not sort of so lightweight that they feel like robots, like the Nightmare and Silver designs. And they're not too bulky either, like the sort of Earthshock ones to an extent are. Yeah, in general, I just really like this design, and if I was in charge, these are the Cybermen that I would bring back. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about the Cybermen. And also, even though I didn't include it, we all know what the worst Cyberman design is. It's the Cyberwoman from Torchwood. The only reason I didn't include it is because it's not really a proper Cyberman, really. I mean, I guess you could argue Ashad isn't either, but whatever. He's called the Lone Cyberman, so I included him on this list. But let me know what you guys think about all these different Cyberman designs. What are your favourites? What are your least favourites? Comment them down below. Let's see if we can get 100 likes again on this video. You guys have been absolutely killing it recently. I cannot thank you enough for all the support. In the links description below will be my Twitter and my Discord. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you.